how do you invest? How do you actually play in these times? Remember Nenegate, extraordinary developments. We are now unpacking what happened there, and I've done a lot of work on that, and I'm sure lots of you guys have done lots of reading on it as well. But when you wake up one morning and there is a change which has taken banking shares that you might have invested in down 20% in 2 days. 20%. That's what happened. If you were in bonds, you would have lost collectively 10% of your value of the bonds, which is supposed to be safe as houses. This is the reflection of a developing market, and a developing market is where politics trumps economics. So what do you do in a situation like that? Well, a lot of the advice in this book, and I've written it in a very easy, readable manner. I tried not to complicate anything. Buffett is a homespun wisdom kind of guy. When you go to Omaha, and I urge you to do this at least once in your lifetime, make the trip. Go and listen to Warren, who's now 85, and Charlie, who's now 92, and they hold forth for 5.5 hours answering questions spontaneously posed by people in the audience and people who've sent emails. This year, for the first time ever, they are webcasting it. So we can all watch it, and as a result, I'm not going. I have a young business, and 150,000 Rand and going to Omaha and back, you need sponsorship, and unfortunately, we didn't get sponsorship this year. So I'll be watching the webcast with you, and I strongly recommend that you do that, because Buffett talks in terms that we can all understand. And it's like the great professors. I remember you were very highly rated in one of those recent surveys because people understand what you talk about.
I'll give you what I think is a quaint recollection is the launch of that radio station 20 years back. And I would very often record that if I was out in meetings into the early evening and so on. And those were the days of specialized outsourcing, computer configuration holdings,
yes.
amalgamated appliances, MaxTech, House of Busby. I'll make that point because I think what you bring to this conversation is this incredible ingredient called experience. And that's what Buffett displays, is these acres and acres of experience. And one of the things that I hear you expressing in this experience is that my intro, which says inflation is 7%, producer price inflation is 9.1, the interest rate is up 75 basis points. Your suggestion might be that this is noise, not news.
Totally. And that's what Buffett tells us. He says he can't, and he's clever. I mean, this is a real smart guy. The smartest man you're probably ever going to read any of his work is Charlie Munger, the guy, his partner. But Buffett is right there, and I think the IQs are off the charts. But where people get it wrong is Buffett says, I don't invest in technology because I don't understand it. He doesn't mean he doesn't understand it like I don't understand how to dig a hole for a stadium. He means I don't know where the earnings for the next 5 years are going to come or what they're going to be. His best pal is Bill Gates, who he plays online bridge with every week, and Bill's on his board, and so is there's the former COO of Yahoo is on his board as well, and he still doesn't buy technology shares. But what he did say a couple of years ago was that he can't poke a hole in Google's business model. He doesn't know well enough what Google's going to earn in the next 5 years, but he can't poke a hole in the business model. And as a consequence of that, value investors worldwide went and bought Google, just because Buffett said so. So he says, forget the noise. He says, I can't call the big picture. I can't call the big trends. What I do is invest, and this is really what the basic story of my book. And it really takes you in very easy fashion about Buffett's life and how he has applied his investment knowledge. But the basic thing is, how do you work intrinsic value for a company? You're buying the company, not the shares. So work out the intrinsic value, and it's not difficult. He says, don't try and get to the second decimal point. In fact, you have a range for your intrinsic value. The way he puts it is that if somebody walks through the door, and if they if they weigh 310 pounds or 320 pounds, you don't need to find out exactly to know they're fat. And it's a similar situation with investing. So you get the intrinsic value, and that changes rarely. That changes as you get the new financials in there. You're doing your estimate on what you think that the company can earn over the next 10 years and work that into your numbers. It's pretty easy, and I've gone through in some detail on how to work that out, because that's where you begin. And once you have an intrinsic value of a company, you then find what the margin of safety is that you would be comfortable with. So let's just say the intrinsic value is R1. Your margin of safety would be 20%. So you don't buy those shares unless they're 80 cents. And then you let Mr. Market, who's the manic depressive, who doesn't have any medication, and let him get manic and depressive, but primarily you wait for him to get into one of his depressive phases so that the share price gets below your margin of safety. That's when you buy. And the period you hold on for is forever. So there's no trading, there's no punting, there's no watching the share price and, oh, that's a good price, that's a bad price. It's doing your homework,